All right, good morning, everyone. This is the admin study group from Des Moines, and our topics for today are our Salesforce knowledge, community applications, activity management capability, and chatter. And so this first one is on my plate is the Salesforce knowledge, and we probably could spend all hour doing Salesforce knowledge, but we won't. We're gonna try to go through just kind of the high level stuff really pretty quickly. So a couple things on knowledge that just kind of wanted to show you what an article looks like. And so I've got a knowledge article that I put together this morning called iPhone Backups. Just got some summary information about it, and then the details related to that particular knowledge article. A couple things to be aware of is visibility to knowledge. So you manage some of this with these checkboxes that are available on knowledge, so you can control who gets access to different knowledge things, whether it's customers, partners. Some of this has to do with how you're using knowledge in your community sites. The other thing to know about knowledge is that it is version controlled. So it does keep track of your previous versions of the article as well. And then there's these things called categories. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about categories. Categories are ways of kind of classifying what your documents, where they fall into, so that you can basically kind of organize them a little bit better. So I've set up a couple categories. We've got internal and public. I've got public as inactive currently. Internal is my only active one. And then I've been able to create some subcategories underneath these. And again, just as a way to kind of quickly show you that I can have knowledge articles specific to each of these different categories. Again, just helps from an organization standpoint. So kind of be familiar with this concept of data categories. You can also control visibility based off of categories. So if I wanted to control on the internal side who can see this category, I can either give them access to all categories, none, or I could customize it and say, all right, you can have the benefits category and policies and procedures, but you don't get to see the other items. So visibility can be controlled there by categories as well.
And Terry?
Yes.
So are those internal versus public, are those based upon role? The role?
No, I don't think so. That's a good question. I shouldn't quickly jump to no. I don't think so.
Okay.
Because I can set those up to whatever I want them to be.
Oh.
So I don't think that it's tied to that. Users without roles can access categories as defined below. So I wonder, that might be interesting to explore that a little bit there. Knowledge does have quite a few settings similar to a lot of other areas of the system. I don't know that I'm going to go through all of these, but know that there's some things that are classic only. And as Salesforce has moved toward knowledge, the Lightning version of knowledge, some of these other things are classic now, classic only. So quite a few of those. Knowledge can support multiple languages, so that's a good thing to be aware of.
So this might be a dumb question. Does this exist in Sales Cloud or just Service Cloud?
That's a good question. This is in Service Cloud only. There is a what's called solutions that are available with your standard Sales Cloud license. But this is
Okay.
not solutions. This is a feature license, so it is an extra cost. Also with knowledge, get my meeting thing out of the way. Knowledge is a fully recognized object in Salesforce. So you have your fields, page layouts, and record types. And record types are really important for how you want to classify different types of knowledge articles as well. So pretty common, you'll see an FAQ type item. You might see procedures, troubleshooting, different types of records like that. And then you can have then a different page layout based off of those record types. So standard stuff that you're used to with any other object, but record types are kind of an important item to understand here with, or at least to recognize the importance of record types with knowledge articles. So if I come in here and I want to create a new case, well, actually I want to create a new article, and I think that's, yeah, I'm on knowledge. So I'm going to do a new article. The first thing it's going to ask is what type do I want to do? I'm going to make this a procedure. And we're going to kind of go with the iPhone theme that I had started earlier. And we're going to say iPhone reset is what this will be. Automatically creates my URL. That's kind of helpful for if you're going to share this knowledge publicly. And then you've got details for procedure or who your audience is. You can edit that too as well. The purpose, we'll edit this one and we'll say it's to reset an iPhone. Notice this is all formatable, or whatever the right term is for that. And then our procedure steps, this is where we're going to have our step-by-step guidelines. So that I will paste in, and I can then control, is this visible to customers, partners? And again, that's all tied to how you're leveraging that with communities. So I'm going to go ahead and save that article. Once it's saved, it's going to be in draft mode. So its status is currently draft. I can then take and assign categories to it. And this will just be a support article. And then I'm ready to publish it. You'll also notice that you've got the ability to identify if this article was helpful for different users to see it. So we'll publish it now. You do the option at a specific time. Okay, so I've got my article there. So now I want to run over to cases, and we'll just kind of play around with this a little bit. I've got a new case started here. And let's go ahead and assign it to somebody. We'll go with Andy. And in my subject, I'm going to say, needs help resetting iPhone. And then you'll have whatever stuff you want to put in there. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And you'll notice that knowledge is sitting over here in the side panel, and it automatically surfaced knowledge articles for me that it determines could be relevant for this particular case. So it's reading the contents of this case and seeing keywords like iPhone. It also noticed that I said reset. So reset is the one that showed up first versus the iPhone backup. So I can go directly into that knowledge article, support my customer however is needed there. And basically I'm kind of good to go. I can also, I can't remember off the top of my head how I do this, but yeah, I don't have email enabled. You can email that knowledge article or a link to it as well. So there's some capabilities with that as well. Any questions on that? That's kind of as deep as I was going to go on knowledge.
That's really mostly like an extension on cases though, isn't it? Right?
Yes. Or if you have a community, you could have a knowledge, you can have knowledge presented there. So it's more of a self-service. Yep. Good question. All right, not hearing any others. Jackie, I think you're on, right? Or,
yep.
All right, community applications. I'm going to stop sharing and let you take it.
All right, so yeah, I was assigned Salesforce Community Application. We do not use communities at our company, so this honestly got me to deep dive a little bit more. But basically just kind of describe the capabilities of the community application. And so just an overview, communities are basically a great way to share information that collaborate with your people, your customers, partners, employees. So it looks like there's a lot of different communities you can have, but definitely Salesforce suggests like a customer portal, client portal, a help forum, kind of like Terry was just talking about with that knowledge article. You could have somebody have their own, search questions and get their own answers and response, support site. And then the other one that Salesforce recommends is an HR Central. So some ways a community can help is a community can generate ideas for new products. So that was actually a good one that I even thought about for our company, but definitely a way just to be able to get instead of being like from emails or stuff, you can have a database that you could send out questions and then get responses. Another thing is said is about testing prototypes in a safe place where you can log support tickets, have the live chat with agents, which I could see that being huge in today's technology because nobody wants to call anybody. We always want to chat with somebody. And then business processes and more can come to life in an online community. So let's see here. Then it talks about multiple communities within your organization. So you can have all of those ideas all in one side of obviously one Salesforce. So one can be where customers access and they only might see certain objects, and then you have partners who might see different objects that you guys can customize to them. Obviously you always have your internal users. And one thing that it did say is you can have up to 100 communities tied to your Salesforce org. But that 100 communities are active, inactive, any kind of previews, lightning platforms. So all that goes against the limit. So although 100 seems like a lot, maybe more established companies can maybe run into that, but I don't know what the chances of that is. Some of the other things it just talked about is how you can improve engagement using communities. Definitely the ones of the customer service and account portals. Obviously, you allow customers to be able to use your knowledge base to be able to answer their own issues and questions they have. Partnering with your clients, especially with sales, to be able to show them, opportunities and deals that you guys are working in-house without always sending them information. They can go and get it themselves. And then even in your employee relationships, having HR have their own portal that allows the employees to go out and get space. And then like Terry said, you can allow them to see certain topics or not topics based on roles. So you do have to enable communities. You can go into setup and search for communities and you'll get to community settings. And then there is a button where you can enable it. One thing after you enable it, it's going to ask you for a domain name. And so you will have to check availability to see if that name is in use. Whatever you start with, it's important that you can never change your domain after you save it. So definitely could be important, especially maybe if a company changes their name, or I'm not sure how that all works. I just know you cannot change it after you save it. I did notice some other Salesforce features it did talk about inside of communities is enabling cases for community users, which I did think was kind of cool. I'm not sure a use case, but where you could allow external members to edit and create and add case comments and stuff, so be more interactive on the actual cases. You can also restrict community user access to cases by having a certain license where they can view and edit. So it's just like a different kind of user. And then obviously chatter inside of your community, and then the chatter answers in your community. So I thought both of those were kind of cool if you want it to be more interactive, so you can give those features access to your communities. The other fun thing on this is it has different templates. And so Salesforce has templates based for some of these topics, whether it's the customer account portal, the partner central, the customer service, or help center, but you can also build your own. This was one of the sample ones that showed in there in some of the research. So I do think that's kind of fun because nobody would know that, you know, it's Salesforce basically behind the system because you can put your own spin on the front look of it. That was high level it. Is there any questions?
How many of you are using communities?
Terry, you know we are.
Yeah, and yeah, I know you guys do for sure.
Yeah, we have like 3 of them, I think.
Do you have them then?
We don't.
Same kind of topics as they're saying is like for a customer and then a partner and then like a help center?
Ours are all for partners actually, but different
Okay.
ones. So one's, for example, a marketing growth fund where they have certain amount of money to spend on with us, and they claim and back and forth. It's kind of how they communicate with us in there. Another one is kind of a configurator where they can configure some of their products. And the other one is also for partners where they can get like information and get to the knowledge and chatter and all of that, like a help center kind of thing.
Okay.
So our setup specifically is around, we have a workflow that allows, so we do business as a TPA, so we do adjustments on claims. And so we allow our partner companies to input brand new claims into our community portal through workflow. And then we allow them to retrieve that information after the fact so they can see, you know, their history, and they've got some dashboarding, and it's some areas it's robust, in other areas it's just more basic. I was going to say you were showing that template page and talking about how you can have, you know, branding and sort of, you know, hiding a bit that it's Salesforce. So since we started using communities, I've noticed a massive amount of basically what our communities across the web for people's ticketing systems specifically. And even I've even, you know, entered tickets with certain companies, and you can tell that they're basically using a community. That's just, they just have a front interface, and it looks like they've actually done some pretty crazy custom dev work on the front ends. But you can tell the structure of it is still Salesforce.
So if you needed someone to have access to opportunities, which community license would you have? So can you do it with a customer community license or a partner community?
I think
I'd
it's
say
a
have to do it with the
partner
Yeah.
user, yeah.
Yeah, partner will allow you to share opportunities. If it's cases, which community would you need?
And the customer.
Customer or partner, either one of them would work for that. Yeah.
Oh, you can use even partner. Okay, good to know.
Yeah. So those are things I could see them posing questions on the exam about, different people from outside your organization and what they may be able to have access to, which Salesforce community would be the appropriate license. So probably good to know some of that information. All right, Kevin, you are up with activity management.
Yeah, let me share just a second.
This is 3% of our exam, and then Kevin Smith will be up with chatter after this. So.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to, just a second here. Oh. You guys seeing?
Yep, we see helpful websites.
That's something is weird. Okay, well, let's just do this super old school, and you can just see it as I threw it together. All right, so I apologies for not being super creative and basically just jamming this all on the top of a generic slide like last time. So when I started doing research on this topic, this is an integral thing to Salesforce and being able to track items that need to be done. So Salesforce activity management is basically talking about the sort of tasks and events, and events being scheduled calendar items. These can be reoccurring items, and utilizing these things, basically, activities is a kind of a collection of all of these to-do items, basically, and they can be related to multiple different records on different objects. And you can have, standard dashboarding allows you to basically see all of these items like, oh, today I need to do this thing, or I should have done this task 3 days ago. I was supposed to call somebody. And so utilizing tasks and events allows us to have a better grasp on what our workload is and what people are actually completing in the time frame, because you can report on all of these items. And so you've got this historical list of what people are doing, what's the cadence of what they're doing, how long does it take people to do certain things, and also sometimes, for auditing purposes, you may need to, or for a litigation, you may need to know, oh, I did call that person on this date, and here's the record of that information, right? So something that's interesting about activities is they're not set up into record types. They use subjects more. So you can predefine subjects that might be like log a call, or, I'm trying to think of what some of them were. Can't quite remember off the top of my head, but so this was a rabbit hole when I started looking at this, because when I was reading on Salesforce, their own page, the amount of information was massive. So I actually started off with probably about 8 times the amount of information that I finalized in this slideshow. And I pared it back because when I saw that it was 3%, I said, I need to go more high level on this because it's going to be 1 or 2 questions. So it's really more about understanding what is happening here, right? So, Terry, I actually did all this in Classic just because people said we weren't necessarily being questioned on Lightning yet. And I know there's some major differences, but let me go to, sorry, apologies there. Let me go to my, okay. So basically on the homepage, this is a standard default that's in my, my Trailhead stuff. But on the standard page, you've got this feed, right? And so this would be all your chatter information and everything that's being broadcast out. But there's multiple different places where you can actually create these activities or tasks and events. One is basically right here. You can do multiple different things, but you can, amongst those, you can log a call, which is basically a task. You can do new task there, you can do new event. These are just opens up kind of more of a generic small little window with just some basic information. And then, this doesn't, if you go through this view, it doesn't really allow you to do reoccurring information as much. But if you were to look down here at some of these related lists that are thrown on the dashboard, you can see, so this is, your calendar. This is saying that, on Thursday, I've got a meeting with Doug in conference room A. And so I know that that's upcoming. And then you can see, okay, so, I haven't completed any of these tasks. They're different statuses, and I can see which dates that they're due on and basically kind of what they are, what it's related to, accounts, and right now my view is saying today an overdue, but the standard, so if you want to see more than 30 days of the past in these activities, you have to specifically tell it to look beyond, because otherwise the standard views only load the 30 days, just so that people concentrated on, supposedly they did some research and said that people, if you get more than 30 days worth of information and somebody is a procrastinator and hasn't done it, they just pile up. So it doesn't really help you out. But you can create easily from these items, from these related components. And so if I was going to create an event, I have the ability to do more through this view than I did from the other. So you can, of course, put in the pertinent information about, this would be the, these are the predetermined subjects that are in, but you can put other ones. So that's highly important. They specifically state that you will want to have these set up so that people more quickly and simply are able to follow the same paths, that everyone kind of understands what's going on as far as what these items and to-do items actually relate to. But one of the things that I wanted to show you that based upon if you go to this view versus just that more simplified one on the dashboard, is that you actually are able to click here and then create this reoccurrence. So you can have meetings that, have a regular cadence. And then for some reason, the other view doesn't give you quite the same options. So I would suggest if somebody's trying to do it, that they would go this route instead.
Yeah, this is your primary activity page here. The other is actually a action.
Oh, and that would make sense too, is why you wouldn't have everything on there. So, so they look very similar. If you were to say that you wanted a new task, and then it also allows you the recurring, and then it's the same, basically the same setup. And then the other thing is that a lot of people are, at least a lot of people I know that in our org, they're not necessarily going here to do these items. We are mostly set up to go through, well, we use Lightning. And so the way that it works better off of, going to a specific object. So, in Classic, you basically would go to, let's just go here to XYZ Corporation. And you basically, in your related list, you see these activities, right? So, and then there's also an activity history. Now this is different from history on the object, which is a history of changes to fields. This is history related to activities that are related to it, so that you can see ongoing what's happened to this particular record. So this account, I had a call with Karen twice. And then it says whether, okay, so it says like this was a task, but this was
an event.
Oh, that's interesting. Not logged as a task, but I was playing around trying different activities. And then you can see open activities, things of this nature. So in our case, we would have, our end users would basically be utilizing more of this type of scenario. And they would get taken to the same full screen creating that task record or activity record, instead going from the actual record that they wanted to, um, that they were, working in. So it'd make more sense to them as far as being related. And so there's a couple of things, there was a few things that I did find interesting. I put a lot of this information in this. I won't go through all of this, but I will throw this out on the share drive so somebody can look at it. But so one thing is, if you share activities, you can't disable that. So once you've basically set it up that all activities are shareable, you can't go backwards. You can't limit it after the fact. And then access to activities, if you are not assigned it, is based upon your role or sharing rules. So if an object is private and you have sharing rules around it, that can lead to, if you have or do not have access to the activity tied to that. How an activity rolls up to account depends on how it's related to it. So there's different ways that activities can actually be tied to certain things. So because it can be related in multiple ways, you may get access based upon how in the specific scenario that you've tied it.
So what you mean there, if I tie an activity to an opportunity, that activity shows up on the opportunity as well as the account?
So to my understanding, it's driven by primary account.
Okay. So yes is the answer. So yeah, as long as the opportunity is tied to the account, then that activity will show up both on the opportunity and the account. So yeah, it does roll up.
Let's see, tasks only have one owner at a time. If you reassign it to someone else, you will only still see it if you are in the same role hierarchy and that person that you reassigned it to is lower than you. Let's see. One thing that I found interesting, but I guess I didn't realize this was, and Terry, maybe you already knew this, but apparently you can't get standard email notifications on tasks when they're created or assigned if you're in Lightning.
I don't know off the top of my head on that.
So that, I think that there's like supposed to be another way to send notifications using email when you're in the Lightning experience that's not tied to the standard. I wasn't able to get a lot of information on that, but I can tell you that this information came straight from Salesforce's.
Yeah. And if you can't find very much on it, it's probably not going to be on the exam.
Right. I didn't do a deep dive on that. Yeah. So there are notifications, and this is much more apparent if you use the Lightning app or Lightning experience, where basically, in the top right corner, you get notification. You can have, so there's a little bell up there basically with an indicator, and then the numerical indicator of how many notifications you have. Up to 3 notifications can be shown simultaneously. Let's see. Yeah, this was interesting, I thought. So validation and workflows are not triggered if your task is created by sending an email. And I'm not sure why that is. I was not able to find information on why it was set up differently than that, unless that it's because maybe the volume of emails would create a mass amount of tasks that people just can't keep up with.
I don't know that that's true. Workflow rules, I could see that. Yeah, actually, that probably is true. I know Apex triggers will run, but.
So in our org, we had these problems a lot. We switched from, we were off activities all the time, and we switched to, I think it's when Salesforce switched to the email message object as opposed to the activity object. And since the email message object isn't, like accessible to the API and all that, developers here will be a lot better on that than I am. Workflow rule, all of our workflow rules started failing, and so we can't. It's pain in the rear. If anybody has a good idea, let me know. Because we basically we're using, like, we reassigned the subject would come through, but activity type doesn't come through, activity purpose doesn't come through. So we use workflows to automatically assign that to email as an activity type. Now they're all blank. So now we have now we have a nice blank field right by calls and events.
Yeah, activities are really
blank means email, but
yeah, I kind of am one of those that's in the camp. I'd really like to see them redo activities from the ground up because it's such a goofy couple of objects.
Yeah,
agreed.
There's some really odd things around this. So
and security is definitely goofy on it because it's very difficult to manage visibility. Because if you see if it's tied to an account and you can see the account, then you're going to be able to see all those activities regardless. It's just an odd object.
So I'm interested, Terry. So my perspective is I've been in sales for 7 or 8 years, had interest in this, and then switched to being an admin. So the opposite of maybe some people on here who are developers who've come over. And at 2 different companies, we, use activities. And here to Athene, part of what we do is we load activities all the time off of campaigns, and people call off activities, right? So you've got an activity list view, pull up the contact, click the dial, and go. It's just interesting you telling me, and Kevin, it sounds like you're not terribly familiar with this object, but I know you're a developer, and it's just interesting that it's not kind of a primary thing because as a salesperson, it's front and center to what you're doing.
Don't misunderstand me there. It is absolutely a very critical piece of Salesforce, and if you're not using activities, shame on you probably.
Right.
Because it is how you're tracking what's taking place. It's where so much of the communication with your clients or your contacts are occurring. It probably should be your largest number of records in your org.
So
I would concur with that because it's like the epitome of customer relationship management, really.
Yeah. So my dislike of the object isn't because it's not important. It's just the way it's structurally configured.
So I feel like and I probably should state that we use tasks and activities heavily, but it's so ubiquitous that it's just I think we don't deep dive into a lot of the things. We try to keep it the most simple as possible and basically have it to be to do and historical information on what communications and items that need to be completed. I think I totally agree with it. The oddities on some of the weirdness on how all of this interrelates, especially around, attachments and files and emails and all of that, that I agree 100%. I think that if they at some point, kind of try to actually do a rebuild, that it would be much more fluid. You just got these kind of disjointedness between some of these things, which are actually vitally important. I don't know how we would survive without having tasks as our to-dos for our end users.
Does that make sense, Zach?
No, it makes perfect sense. And we're kind of, we're in the middle of a lightning transition. We're in the middle of evaluating a different potential, dialer, different, we've looked at Einstein activity capture. I think we're punting on that because that doesn't really seem to do what we want it to do the way we want it to do it. So I'm neck deep in this stuff, and I'm probably beyond neck deep. I'm drowning, and a lot of it has to do with really how we as a company use activities. Like when we look at, I don't know how many of you guys have been on calls with like dialer vendors, like Ring DNA, companies like that.
Yeah.
they all use like contact lists and lead lists, one of the two, to call through. Well, that's not how we work. You know, we work off, here's, you know, 50 or 100 activities. You're going to call the person, but you're really completing an activity, if you know what I mean. And so it just, I don't know. I'm probably going to put something out on the local community group here this afternoon just to see what people are doing on that, because I'm
Good.
at a loss.
Yeah. Kevin, do you have anything else important on that, on this piece?
I have more information, but honestly, I think it's extra information that I don't know that's going to be on the test. I'll provide it. I'll throw it in the folder. I also have screenshots of you know, how you get to some of those screens and what some of that the activities and stuff look like from the classic viewpoint. I also have a link to basically what is the Salesforce, their own page that talks about activity management. I'll put all that up there, but basically I mostly want to concentrate on just people understanding, you know, what these items are, and that you can keep track of what needs to get done, and have the history of that and report on it.
Very good. Very good. All right. Thank you, sir. Nice job. Kevin Smith on Chatter.
All righty. 1 second here. Okay. Well, this will be quick and easy because it's Chatter. Yeah, it was actually more difficult to figure out how to make these slides than to actually tell you about it. So with that, Chatter. And if I can make this go to the next one, there we go. What is it? Collaboration tool. So you can collaborate with fellow employees on files, records. It's automatically enabled in all new orgs. So out of the box, it'll be on. My company does not use Chatter, so we had to disable it. One of the nice things is Chatter does allow your users to create groups for teams to collaborate. 4 types. You have public, private, unlisted, and broadcast only. The one I'll point out here is unlisted because this option must be enabled by the admins. So keep that in mind. Here's kind of a look. As you can see, setup, quick finder, just put in Chatter, you get to your Chatter settings. So there are a few more than what's here.
Nice job using the dark view. Dark view.
Yeah.
Nice.
As you'll see in the groups, you can allow archiving, allow records in groups, and then there's that enable unlisted groups option, which you need to select, and people want to use that. But from what I remember from my times taking the test, that really wasn't, that was covered, the unlisted groups, so keep that in mind. Feed tracking, as it states right here, detects changes to tracked records, record fields, post them as updates in the What I Follow feed. So users who follow a record will see those updates. The only exception is if you're the one making the update, your record, you're not going to see that in What I Follow. Pretty self-explanatory. What I do want to show you here is the field tracking and setup. So you're looking at it from an object perspective, and then you can actually put what fields you're looking at. So if I can get here, 1 second, I move this. And if it's still active here, 1 moment. I'll slide this on over. Okay. So here's my developer org. You can see here you have your object. You can see the fields that are being tracked. So in this case, clicking on this, it shows you the account name, the account owner. So if there's any changes here, that'll go ahead and update and send out tracking for it. So as you can see, I went ahead and I think this was Dickinson PLC, and I just changed it to Dickens. Over here on the right, you have the feed. And on the chatter, you can see, I've been kind of messing around with it, but you can see the account name Dickinson PLC to Dickens PLC. I changed that yesterday morning. So that's just one thing I wanted to show you on there. Obviously, you can change where this lives as an admin depending on where users want it. Not really going to cover that in this, however. The next thing is really about following and security. Following is pretty easy. You can click at the top of your object. So I guess I can go back to that real quick over here and show you. Let's make it there. You can see right here, I can click follow, and now I'm following this account. Or I can click it again to unfollow it. Same with your users, you can do that. One thing to keep in mind with following, you get out of the box up to a maximum of 500 follows, whether that be on user, topic, or object. Now, if you want to get more follows, you can, but you have to put a case in with Salesforce to be able to allow that. They enable it for a total maximum of 2,000 follows. So keep that in mind, because I do recall something of that being on my test. And as I said, I'll keep it brief and short. Let's recap. So again, security, let's talk about the security real quick before we recap. Security is set by your settings and permissions inside of your actual Salesforce organization. Really, there's not a lot for you to do with chatter. It's basically, as an admin, you're hands off except for those few things. And let's recap. In order for unlisted groups to be used, the admin must enable that function in setup. Out of the box, you get 500 follows. I've had objects and users I forgot to put in topics. My apologies. However, you can get the 2,000. You've got to put in a case. Security is set by the settings of your Salesforce org. And you must enable feed tracking on any custom objects you create in setup. So keep that in mind. If you're creating custom objects, you want to have tracking on there, you have to make sure you enable the feed tracking on that custom object. That's really all I have for chatter, because that's how easy it is.
Very good.
So I do have a little anecdote. We had several users not understand the their actual power of what they could put on chatter and broadcast financial information across the entire company that they were not supposed to. So you do need to be a little bit careful about how you have your end users utilize chatter and what they're able to put out there. We like to tell people that if you're going to use chatter, think of it as basically, if you put it there, it's public knowledge. So just so they would kind of temper what they put out.
And I guess to add on to that as well, there are two types of licenses for chatter. You have your chatter free. Oh, what was the other one? Now I'm blanking out. I have set up here somewhere. Oh, whatever. We'll just get there real quick. And let's just do new user for the sake. So you have your chatter external, chatter free. Chatter external, obviously for those that do not have a license to your org, you can assign that so that they can collaborate with you. I can't remember, there was a question, and I just remember that now, about the maximum amount of licenses for the chatter free. But I can't remember what that number is. But I do remember...
in your quick find there, go to company.
That's right. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it'll be listed there.
I think it's what, 2,000, 5,000?
I was thinking 5, but I don't know either. Oh, yeah, do a show all there.
That show all. Of course, why would it be? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it was the...
Let's see if I have it.
Chatter free, yeah, 5,000.
5,000, okay.
So chatter external was 500. That's what it was. So 5,500. So those would probably be good takeaways as well. But from the couple times I've taken the test, it's mainly about the unlisted groups, the amount of follows. They didn't really have anything about fee tracking on there, but I felt that we needed to address custom objects and then the amount of licenses that you have.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be comfortable with the security aspect of it, or lack thereof.
Right.
As well.
So,
all right.
That's it. That's what I have.
Nice job, Kevin.
Great.
Any questions from our topics at all today? Anybody have any? We've got a few minutes here. We actually went through those in pretty record time, so that's pretty good.
Terry, you know me. I could have gone the entire hour.
I know. That's the reason I shut you up sooner. Anyone have any questions? Challenges that you're facing that you'd like that hit any of these topics? All right, not hearing any. I am going to share my screen again. We'll look at our assignments for next week. So the 30th. We do have an opening here next week for data loads and transfers. So that's importing, updating, transferring, and mass deleting data. Anybody working on that sort of thing that you'd like to maybe dig in a little deeper and present on that one? This is where somebody says, yes, I would love to. Mm-hmm. All right.
Carla raised her hand behind me.
Right. All right.
Don't shush, Kevin.
I didn't hear you, Carla.
No, I didn't. I did not raise my hand.
Okay. All right.
I told Kevin
I'll
to
take that
shush.
one on then. I will take that. And then is it Lois and is it Lois or Lewis? Lewis.
Lewis, yeah.
Lewis. Okay, Lewis. You were up with data tools and use cases.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tanner, you have data validation.
Yep.
All good. A couple other topics that we need people to jump onto. One is solution capabilities. That's identifying really which tool to use based off of a given scenario. So is it important? Would you solution it with workflow rules, or would you use process builder, or would you use flow? That sort of thing is what I believe they're after on that topic. And then we also have one for approval processes. So if you feel like you're an expert on approval processes, please let me know, because I'd love to assign this one to you to cover that topic. That's another one that I wish they would completely do away with and redo. It seems to me like they make that one overly too complicated. Well, with that, if there's nothing else, we will let you go, and we will talk to you again next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.